Anyway, good to have all of you here in this particular session. This is the one for students with some kind of interest in ministry, and Baylor loves ministry students. In fact, it's the only school around that I know of who has 2 full-time faculty members devoted completely to ministry students, and that's all that we do. And then we have 3 other professors that will also help out and work with our ministry students. And so there's certainly that kind of support. But then also, Baylor wants to help support financially because they know, just as we know, that ministers may not get paid quite as much as some of those pre-law folks that go into law, and the doctors out there, and the business folks, and the engineers, and all that. So, to help, the tuition is a little high, right? But to help defray some of the costs there, Baylor supports ministry students with about $2.5 million worth of ministry scholarships every year. And so we'll be sharing some about that. Now, some of you probably have already applied for those. How many of you have already applied for ministry scholarship?
Everybody.
Well, we can skip right over it then, right?
That makes it easy.
So, I will just quiz you. Tell me, what are the 2 types of ministry scholarships that we have available at any point during the year? If you apply.
Is it the PG?
Oh, there we go. There we go.
PGCT, that's what I was thinking of.
We've got all of these funny acrostics, but the Baptist General Convention of Texas scholarship, the BGCT scholarship, which is 5% of tuition. So how many of you are Baptists then? We've got a couple of Baptists. So 5% of tuition equates to about $2,500 a year. So it's a nice little scholarship. Certainly doesn't cover everything, but that's not a bad scholarship. Then there is also just a general ministry scholarship, which is the Baylor Ministry Scholarship, worth 15% of tuition. And so that is $7,500 per academic year. And so if you put those 2 together, $10,000 per year, $40,000 total. And if the Baylor tuition happens to go up, sometimes it does. Has there ever been a year when it hasn't?
I'm not answering
that. So, the great thing about this scholarship is that it's tied to that percentage so that it does continue to go up as the tuition goes up there. So certainly, all of you have applied for those scholarships. That is absolutely wonderful. Have you heard back from our office, or is it still in process? Everybody heard back at this point? It's on your accounts already? That would be impressive if it were. The bills are due when? Parents?
July 31st.
Oh, they have this hand. It is etched in their brains, July 31st. Certainly want to make sure that those are all awarded before that time, because it's nice to have that as you get prepared to pay that tuition. So, I guess we can just skip right over
have
that.
fun. Yeah.
We can just go right to the. Does anybody have any questions about these? Yeah.
For the one that says Texas Baptist Ministry Scholarship, do you have to be a Texas resident for that one? Or like your home church be in Texas?
You can be any kind of Baptist coming in.
Okay.
You can be an Oklahoma Baptist.
Okay.
You can be a primitive foot washing Baptist, any kind of Baptist coming in.
Okay, I got you.
But your first year here, well, and all the years really, we want you, and the BGCT wants you to be involved in church.
Yeah.
And to continue receiving that BGCT scholarship, because that money does come from them, they want you to be involved in a BGCT affiliated church. And so there are only about 120 of those here in the Waco area. One on every street corner, literally. You can find a Baptist church, and all but about 3 are affiliated with the BGCT. So if you do have a question about, you can always ask the church, are you affiliated? But if you would like to, if you're wondering, is this church that I'm really interested in affiliated with the BGCT, just shoot me an email and I can tell you in 60 seconds. I'll get back with you right away on that. Now, what about, what kind of denominations do we have represented? Methodist. Okay, a bunch of Methodist, non-denominational. All right, we've got some great Methodist churches in Waco. In fact, one of the Methodist ministers of the large, First United Methodist Church here, has a fantastic staff that we're getting a number of field supervisors from that particular church, but we have other Methodist field supervisors as well. So you may very well stay Methodist, and your parents probably want you to stay Methodist, and we will support that. Non-denominational, there's a large non-denominational church. Now, non-denominational churches are a little strange, though, because not that the churches are strange, but it's what kind of non-denominational denomination are you? Because you have some, in fact, every year, I've already had about 3 students this year that thought that they were from a strictly non-denominational church, and lo and behold, it turned out that they were from a Baptist church. It's just that they hide the fact that they're Baptist. There are some non-denominational churches that are very Baptistic. They are non-denominational, but their practices are just like the Baptists. Their polity, the way they make decisions, very much like the Baptists. And you may find yourself in a Baptist church. You may go to Calvary Baptist and say, oh, I love this church, and this is where I want to make my home church. And so next year, when you're applying for a scholarship, and if you become a member, if you won't, we're not out to convert Methodist to Baptist. But if you happen to join a Baptist church, you could apply for that BGCT scholarship, as long as it's affiliated. Well, first year you can, any Baptist, but you can go ahead and apply for that. We do have a lot of non-denominational students who find themselves in Baptist churches, actually join those Baptist churches. And so if you happen to find that, we would certainly invite you to do that. One of the large non-denominational churches, one of the types is more of a charismatic non-denominational church, is Antioch Community Church. And very large church, thousands and thousands
We have a lot of students.
of folks worshiping there every weekend. Great church, and so that may be a church that you'd be interested in as well. There will actually be what's called, I think they're still calling it a church fair. It's during Welcome Week, so the first few days when you're here before classes start. I think they usually have it on a Friday night, and they will have like ministers from all of these churches, or a number of churches, come and just talk to you about their church. And plus, those that have been here a year will have all kinds of advice for you about which churches to go to, that kind of thing. But we're also happy to share with you about what we know about the churches.
But the church fair is fantastic because you get to meet some of the ministers, often they're college ministers,
Right.
or some of the students who are involved, and learn about their small group ministries. And sometimes they're promoting mission trips already that they're getting ready to go on at some point during the year. So I take advantage of that opportunity of them all coming to you to see what is available around town. And our students come from all the kinds of denominations.
Right.
So.
Mhm. All right. Okay, that was an excellent question. See what a big discussion. Any other questions related to scholarships before we begin to talk about classes a little bit? Okay. No religion majors. Oh, yeah, okay. All right. Side note, you all have to listen. For those who are religion majors, there are 2 core classes that are required of all Baylor students. That is the Scriptures class and the Heritage class, 1310, 1350. We have a special class for religion majors. Did you register for that class by chance?
I believe so, actually.
With Dr. Holloman?
Yes.
Okay, and we're going to make the rest of them jealous now. This particular class, you may want to become a religion major. Then you can join this section. Has 25
To 30,
maybe
yeah.
30 students in there, but they're all religion majors, and it's part of the new student experience. And in that, now the class is great. Dr. Holloman is one of the very best professors here on campus. But even better than that is about 5 times during the semester, you get to go over to his house where he and his wife will, I don't know that Eric prepares anything actually, but they will buy food, and Clara has the best desserts in the world. And they also will invite, well, we get to go
We get to go once.
during the semester, but other religion professors, so you get to know a little bit more about the religion department, and you're also meeting all those other religion majors and in that initial class with all the religion majors. So great class. Make sure that you're in there. We want you to be in there. Ready to become a religion major?
I had a
You can-
secondary major.
Yeah, you could have a secondary major or a double major. Notice that we both double majored and
Got
made
out
it
in 4
through.
years.
Some of you probably, how many of you are coming into Baylor with hours already? Okay, see, this is so impressive. I came in with no college credit whatsoever. Double majored, didn't go to school during the summer, still made it through in 4 years. So it can be done. You made it through in 4 years?
Yeah, but I took some summer classes because I
Yeah,
wanted to.
she started out biology, right? Yeah, so that's a little different than, but just track your way all the way through. If you do want to add another major, you can do that either as a double major or as a secondary major. Go ahead.
The reason for this is that because we have classes in the core, which we love, that all of our students take 1310 and 1350. Those are both core classes, but also the foundational classes for the major. And so everyone has to take those before they can get in upper level religion classes. And we were finding that if we didn't have a specific class for majors, our majors didn't meet each other till their second year because they had never had any classes together. So they tried to create these spaces so that the majors had some community in their first year and didn't have to wait till their second year. But we also have things for majors and minors that you will be invited to throughout the year so that you can get to know other ministry students.
And the way that you'll learn about those is through email. Now,
I know that's old school.
It's old school, and you say, oh, do I have to check my email? All kinds of important information comes through your Baylor email, though. So make it a habit of checking it, even if you don't want to. Don't block us. We send you good stuff. We send you announcements about scholarships. We send you announcements about
Placement opportunities and free food and events on campus.
Right. One of the events I can tell you about right now, I can't remember the date, but we're going to have several college-type ministers here on campus have a lunch. Have you all have taken the tour already?
Mm-hmm.
So do you remember where the Bobo Office of Spiritual Life building is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we will have a big lunch in there just a few weeks into the semester where you'll get to just talk with these ministers about kind of their calling and discernment, a little bit about that, and enjoy a nice meal. And we'll have those events periodically, and so again, don't block us. Check your email. Again, good stuff that we're sending you. Let's go ahead and share some about the courses.
Can we start with 2480?
Yes.
So if you're on scholarship, which all of you looks like are or will be, one of the requirements for that is to be a religion major or minor. And then within that minor, it's pretty flexible. So the back of this yellow sheet, you don't have to look at it, but if you want to, it gives the requirements for religion major at the top and those for the religion minor at the bottom. And it is a very flexible minor. So you take 1310, 1350, and then 4 more classes. And you can choose any of those classes except one that you choose must be Religion 2480 because it is the requirement for the scholarship. Religion 2480 is Introduction to Ministry, and we say you have to take the class, but also you get to take the class. It is a very small community-based class capped at 14 or 15 students where we do a lot of discernment work together over the course of the semester. So if you're one of those people who, like me, might mark like 5 ministry interests, you're not quite sure where you're going yet, this is a class that will give you an opportunity to do some reading, do some discernment and reflection, and then also participate in an internship in one of those areas just to try it on and see if that's what you might be called to do full time. We have over 150 trained supervisors in the Waco area, all the way from chaplains who are working in the hospital to senior pastors to counselors to music ministers, children's ministers, you name it. We probably have someone who has done it or is doing it currently, and we partner you with one of them for the semester. It is not an overwhelming internship. We're not talking 40 hours a week on top of your schoolwork. It's 5 hours a week. One of those hours is a one-on-one meeting with your supervisor where you get to debrief and talk through what you're learning in class and what you're thinking about ministry. And then the other 4 are kind of supervised ministry hours where you're going along with them for pastoral visits or you're helping to plan the curriculum for next week's children's Sunday school class. But you're getting hands-on experience of learning what ministry looks like day to day. 99% of our students in their final reflection paper report that that is their favorite part of the class, is actually getting to do ministry. And this is what we expect. We know that the reading we're doing, the discussion that we're doing is crucial for ministry formation. But most people feel called to ministry don't want to just read about ministry, they want to be engaged in doing ministry. And so this is a course that allows you to do some ministry and just see if this is where your passion lies, if this is what you want to do. And we love teaching that class. We love the reflections that come out of that class and the growth that always happens in those classes. We recommend that you take it in your sophomore year, if at all possible, because if you think for sure you're going to be a children's minister and then you do a semester of it and you're like, absolutely not, then maybe you don't want to take that summer camp position. Maybe you want to try something else. So we recommend that you try to get this in your sophomore year.
And everybody has the numbering system down for the courses, 1,000 first year, 2,000 second year, 3,000. Not that you can't take a 3,000 level course maybe a year in your sophomore year. Second number is the number of hours that you're meeting typically in class, except for that 2480. So notice that all of these are 3-hour classes, except for the 2480. And that extra hour is that lab, your 5 hours a week that you're out there doing ministry. If you will continue looking at, now these are all wonderful courses. We recommend them all. But since we're in practical studies, we will spend more time with our practical studies courses. And ministry students, you want practical studies, don't you? You want to be doing ministry. And so we've talked some about the Intro to Ministry class. There is also a Communication in Ministry class, and Dr. McMichael teaches this one. And it is offered every spring And go ahead and tell them about that communication ministry, and then we'll get to the
So
other.
the communication and ministry class is every spring. We focus on many different kinds of communication in ministry, but don't kind of zoom in on one of the primary ones, which is preaching. So we spend a good bit of time listening to other preachers, learning about different forms of the sermon, what this looks like across denominations, even to think about different ways of different types of preaching. We read a book on creative styles of preaching that kind of goes through some of the different types. And we kind of recognize as we go along that most of us are used to only hearing one or two types of sermons, because when you plant yourself in a church, your preacher tends to lean towards one style, usually more than another. So we talk about how that informs our own sense of what preaching is or should be. And then we work up towards writing and preaching a sermon for our classmates, and to get affirmation from them and feedback from them. And then the final project is to write a second sermon where you're incorporating some of the feedback you got on your first time in front of the class. It is so much fun. For many of the students, this is the first time they've ever preached. Some of them do it and they're like, I'm glad to know I can do that. I don't want to do that. And then some of them do it and they're like, I never would have tried this, and I just feel like I come alive when I have the opportunity to engage scripture in that way. So we do a good bit of that, but then along the way we give ourselves kind of little breaks from that heaviness, perhaps, of feeling like, oh my goodness, I've got to preach, to talk about leading small groups and Bible studies and how we communicate the gospel well in those situations. Because most of my students, they might not all preach, but almost all of them are going to be or already are leading Bible studies. So we talk about communicating there. We talk about communicating in conflict and what our go-to conflict styles are, and when those work and when we might need to try something else. And then one of my favorites, which doesn't seem to be one of the students' favorites, which is, how do we run a good meeting? Like, what does it mean to communicate well in a meeting, and to set an agenda, and to value our volunteers' time who are there for the church, and make sure we're giving action items and not wasting everyone's time on a Tuesday night. So those are some of the types of communication we talk about, and we always grow really close together as we're in this space, because we have to be vulnerable as we share with one another. And yes, it's offered every spring, so I look forward to having some of you in that class.
And one of the other courses is that cross-cultural ministry class. That's offered every fall. And think missions when you think about that class. So if you have, whether that's local missions or global missions, we talk about both of those. What are some of the elements of culture, the components, and how do we bridge between cultures? How do we develop partnerships that are legitimate, interdependent partnerships, rather than having, and this is what we often are too guilty of, is, how many of you have been on a mission trip, by the way? Okay, so several. And it is wonderful, and I hope that those mission trips will run very well. Many of them, especially these days, are getting to the point where really highly respecting the host partner, letting them set the agenda. Certainly in years past, there were too many mission trips where we'd say, oh, the more people we can bring on our team, the better. If we can bring 50 junior hires on this trip to paint the pastor's house over there, this will be great. That's not always what they want, though. And one of the studies that I did, we had over 100 host partners who had hosted more than 3,000 short-term teams coming in. The size of the group that they wanted was between 5 and 9. Because they said, we can work with these smaller groups. They can get to know us better. We can go easily from one area to the other. And so just in that class, we learn a lot about just how do we develop those kind of partnerships and long-lasting partnerships. And then we also talk about different types of cross-cultural ministry, everything from church planting to medical missions to anti-trafficking to orphan care. Sports ministry, how do we do this in ways where it's effective kind of ministry that is mutually beneficial for certainly the participants are going to benefit from, but also those host communities as well. So
this is one of our most popular classes. So especially if you have any interest in missions, I would highly recommend taking that
would
course.
love to have you in that class. So every fall semester for that one. The leadership in ministry is also every fall semester.
No, it's every spring.
Oh, that's right. Every spring semester, thank you. And that one, every single one of you should take that course because you're going to be leaders in ministry. And this is one of the things that I found. Not only are you going to be leaders in ministry, but you are going to be leaders beyond just the local church. So many of our graduates, because, I mean, you are phenomenally talented, intellectually, in your giftedness, and what I see our graduates doing, it is so nice to be able to keep track of them as they're going literally around the world, but writing curriculum, not only for your church, but for others. It's just amazing, all the different kinds of things that our graduates are doing. So please take that leadership in ministry course, not only for local church ministry, parachurch ministry, but also it's just good to be able to learn from all the different types of ministers that the professor will bring in, whether that be Christian nonprofits or youth ministers or pastors, because a number of them will come in and talk to the class. So it's a great course to have. So beyond that,
Do you recommend that leadership and communications class, if those are both spring classes? Is that junior, senior year level, since they're doing their internship sophomore year? Or is there a process there?
excellent question.
It usually is in their junior year, but sophomores are welcome to take it.
Okay.
The reason I say it's usually in their junior and senior year is because they fill up before the sophomores can
Yeah.
register usually. So I did, this past spring was an exception in that communication and ministry ran at the same time as our senior seminar. And so several sophomores got in this past spring, but I think that's the most sophomores I've had in a really long time. And it was because there was a conflict with a class that was required of the religion major, that there were still spots. Normally it fills up.
Does cross-cultural fill up quickly too?
Yeah, and so we'll typically have juniors and seniors in that class. Certainly in the leadership class, juniors and seniors, a lot of seniors will be in there.
But we're
You'll
getting
have
some more, some more classes in the rotation, which should open up some seats. So
Right.
we, this spring for the first time since I've been here, I'm teaching a course on women in ministry in particular. And so that will be an additional practical studies course, which means that people will get to choose among, which will hopefully spread that out a bit. And then we're trying to get one extra course in every other year like that, some special topics course, so that we can have more space for our students. But the practical studies courses do fill up pretty quickly because a lot of our ministry students who are majors, want that to be their focus. And so if it's their focus, that means they have to take all of them. But I will say that our sophomores are very, some of our more popular classes in the department are Jesus and the Gospels, Paul and his writings, and that those classes, because they're so popular, they will run almost every semester, and they have 29 in them instead of 19. So most religion upper level classes are capped at 18 or 19, which is why it gets to be hard to get in them your sophomore years. But those scripture courses, they will often bump to 29, so that and then sophomores can often find a spot in those classes in their sophomore year. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
Most of the time they get that intro ministry class in that sophomore year, and then one scripture course, or they pick up their language. So if Hebrew class, many of them will either take in their first year or their second year, because not only is it in the religion department, but it can be your language requirement in the School of Arts and Sciences if you're in that if you have to have it for your core. I don't know the business school core, I'm sorry. So I don't know if you have to have a language or not, but in arts and sciences, you have to have 2 semesters of language.
And
And we have lots of Hebrew sections. They run like 3 a semester, 2 or 3
Right.
a semester.
the students love the Hebrew classes. I haven't quite figured out why. I'm-
have.
Okay, so Dr. Michael, share with us why these classes are so popular.
I think they're popular because we have amazing colleagues who teach them.
Well, there's that,
Who
for sure.
care deeply about helping the students be able to read the Bible. Like the focus of the Hebrew classes is learning Hebrew in order to read scripture in the original Hebrew. And they take great time and care with that. And they make it fun. They
Yeah.
really do. But I think the other reason that it's often popular is that it's a break from your other classes. Religion is, our classes are very reading heavy. We do a lot of reading and writing in a religion major or minor. That's just the reality of it. And the Hebrew class is a language class, so you're doing lots of memorization. So when you get tired of reading for your New Testament class or your practical studies class, do some flashcards and you're still studying, but it's using a different side of your brain. So I think that's why that it pairs well. Like you're reinforcing what you're learning in the other classes, but it's a completely different side of your brain. That's my theory.
Well,
It's not scientifically proven.
I think, we do have excellent professors teaching those courses, and just being able to, it opens up the Bible in so many new ways, because we really miss so much. When you're reading an English translation, you do not catch all of the puns, the acrostics, everything else in there, and you do as you begin to know the Hebrew. And so that's really good. And Greek is good too. Greek is actually taught by professors in the classics department, so that would be the difference there. And so you get some Bible, but not as much as you would in the Hebrew classes. So we highly recommend, we really do recommend all these courses.
We have
So,
great colleagues.
for all of you who are getting a minor in religion, it is the easiest minor to get. We say, not because the classes are easy, but just because you have 3 that you're already required to have: Scriptures, Heritage, and the Introduction to Ministry, and then any 3 others. So any of those, and they're all wonderful classes. When I was here, I focused more on the Bible classes because we only had Introduction to Ministry as far as practical studies go. But they're all great classes.
So since I'm a church music major and I'm taking with the School of Music,
Yeah.
I can't double major, so to say, but doing the minor, would it be easier because there are classes I have to take maybe for a church music major? Does it ever overlap?
So with the church music major, that is one of the few exceptions. So you don't have to major or minor in religion if you're a church music major, because that is considered a ministry major. And I think that you will take intro to ministry as a church music major. So that is that required of the church music or just those on scholarship?
It's actually, I think, one of the requirements for that, maybe even both the major and the minor in church music. But we would invite you to take another course or 2 as you're able to. One of the things you'll find, this isn't fair. Music students, you'll be taking, say, 16 hours, but it'll seem more like 25 because you've got this ensemble and you get half an hour credit or an hour credit, but you're spending 5 hours a week, you know. So it can be a pretty demanding major, whether it's church music or just a regular music major. But we certainly invite you to take any extra courses that you'd like.
And I would recommend, Dr. Randall Bradley and then Dr. Monique and Ingalls, who are both in church music, we've been working with them on a certificate in ministry that would pair classes that you already have to take in church music with classes in the religion department. So it might be that you want to do the church music major with a certificate in ministry, which then is specifically like made with them to pair with your courses that you already have to take. And so that has not been officially approved, but it should be going through this fall, I think.
Yeah, I think we're working on
So
this
it will be
fall.
approved before you need it to be.
That sounds awesome.
But Dr. Ingalls
Have you
has
met
been the
her
point
yet,
person
by
on it.
chance?
I have talked to Dr. Bradley a
Okay.
couple times, but I've never talked to Dr.
Okay, you will want to get to meet her and talk with her. She is one of the neatest people in the world doing ethnomusicology, and I just love her work and what she's doing. And of course, that ties into missions as well, so great
She's been doing like
appreciation.
global Christian music.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
it's really cool research that she does.
Yeah. All right, great questions. Others?
Doesn't have to be about classes. Any other questions that you have that we might be able to answer?
Do you guys help make the connection for the internship, or does the student need to pursue that on their own?
That's a really good question.
It's a little bit of both. Some of our students will come into the class and they'll say, oh, I've been working with the children's minister or the student minister or the college minister, and I've already talked with that person, and they said it'd be great if I could work with them this semester. And as long as we don't have two other students also wanting that same person, we're able to make that connection work. But sometimes students will have no idea. Going to church, but I'm really open to anything. And so sometimes we try to be a little bit creative there. With missions, we've got some great, we've got Charlie Ramsey, he's the Baptist student minister here, but he was in Pakistan for 20 years plus doing missions, and he's a great one to have as a field supervisor for that. But Jimmy Dorrell or John Calloway at Mission Waco gives another different angle on that. And so we've got, like I said, this pool of about 150 field supervisors, and so we can really help the students. They don't have to have anything lined up at all. One of the ones, well, let me tell you about two. Sometimes, okay, we've got some large churches here. Harris Creek now has, I don't know how many, but do any of you know JP? He's got all kinds of wonderful books he's written and podcasts and all this. Very popular church right now. Highland, Antioch, large churches with thousands of people there. But let's say, who was going into pastoral ministry? Anybody? Not in this group, but
You
say.
said you, yeah, you said you.
But let's say, for example, okay, I want to try out pastoral ministry, want to work with the lead pastor. I would say you probably don't want to work with one of the megachurch lead pastors. It might be a great honor, but they are so busy. And even though they want to work with the students so much, and they will work with our students that we pair up with them, what I found really productive is to get into more of a medium-sized church, maybe one of those with 200 or 300 or 400 in the congregation. And those pastors spend a lot of time. And the students who work with them get to do so many different things. And then even, I had one student, Anglo student, and he was very interested in bridging between cultures. And I said, we've got a great African-American minister here in Waco, Sam Doyle. What would you think about doing your internship there? And he did fantastic internship. Sam just was one of the best field supervisors ever. The church just took him in, and so there are some different things that we can do that really make for some creative internships and really meaningful experiences.
There's no one right way to do it, but I will say it is, I always encourage my students, and like some of them have already have a job in a church and they need to keep that job. But if they don't, I really encourage them, like this is your opportunity in a semester to get some kind of new experience that you couldn't have otherwise. And so if you know what your ministry interest is, like that is the key. Like, and then we can find someone where you're going to get the most experience doing that as possible. So that's the key, like the helpful part about placing you with a minister at a medium or even a small church. Like they might let you preach on a Sunday night, and then give you feedback, or let you be the person who goes and leads the worship at the nursing home ministry that they have, and then help you with that. So they just get a lot more hands-on experience if they're willing to just kind of say, yeah, I'm willing to go wherever I can do the most. And so we love it when they are open to that possibility. But the student, the supervisor, and we sign off on it. So if anybody feels like, oh, this isn't a good match, then we find another placement.
Right. Yeah, everybody has veto power. Yeah.
Equal veto.
All right, excellent questions.